Welcome everyone this evening to the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, or the NRC's environmental scoping meeting related to the proposed Kemmerer Unit 1 power plant. My name is Brett Cookin. I serve normally as the regional counsel, so as an attorney in the Region 1 of the U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission, Philadelphia office. However, this evening I'll be the facilitator for this meeting. Fortunately, last week I did contract COVID. That's why I'm wearing this. I have tested negative twice now, but out of abundance of caution, trust me, this is for your benefit. I wish I didn't have to wear this myself, but based on current CDC guidelines, here we are. If you can't hear me for any reason, this is why I bring this up. Please let me know and I'll repeat myself. And again, I apologize for the hassle. So our goals tonight are twofold. One, to provide you with an overview of the licensing process that the NRC will undertake, both with respect to the safety and environmental reviews, which you'll hear much more about in the course of the presentation. And then second, to get your input on the potential impacts NRC should consider as part of its environmental review. So a term you're going to hear a lot this evening is scoping. What do we mean? That simply refers to determining the scope of the NRC's environmental review. As you'll hear more this evening, tonight is just one way that you can participate in that scoping process. And again, we'll go into more detail about that, the other ways in which you can participate during the NRC's presentation. After we hear a presentation by the NRC staff, again, information that we think is important for you to understand to better enable you to participate in the scoping process, we'll then transition to hear comments from you. Please keep in mind that we are transcribing, so recording and transcribing this meeting tonight to make sure that we fully capture your comments. You can help us get a clean recording by identifying yourself, so your name and any group affiliation when it is your turn to speak. If you would like to offer a comment this evening and have not already done so, please register your interest on the sign-up table just outside the meeting room. Now for just one basic ground rule. I ask you to adhere to civil decorum, that out of respect for each other, that you don't disrupt the speaking times of others, just as you wouldn't want your speaking time, but you wouldn't want to be disrupted during your own speaking time. However, with that said, threatening gestures or statements under no circumstances will be tolerated and will be cause for immediate ejection from the meeting. If you feel that you've been threatened in any way, please let me know, or please tell one of the NRC staff who's positioned at the back of the room. If you have something that you would like to give to the panel of NRC staff, please hand it to me. There are a lot of cords going on up here. We don't want you to trip on anything. And then finally, please silence your cell phones at this time. And the bathrooms, in case you've not already noticed, just outside these doors, straight across the hallway. And with that, I will now hand things over to Christopher Reagan, the Director of the Division of Rulemaking, Environmental, and Financial Support in the NRC Office of Nuclear Materials, Safety, and Safeguards.
Here we go. Can I have a test? Okay, very good. Thanks, Brett. I don't like standing behind a lectern, so I'm going to stand out front here. I just have a few things that I wanted to mention. Again, my name is Christopher Regan. I'm the Director for the Division of Rulemaking, Environmental, and Financial Support at the Office of Nuclear Materials, Safety, and Safeguards. It's a long title. I work for the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. I'm responsible for the environmental reviews, which is the reason that we're here today. I have with me a number of my staff. You'll hear from Joe O'Hara, who's the Environmental Project Manager. We'll hear from Alicia Sutton, who's our Licensing Project Manager. I also have Pat Bocone here, who's also one of my other Environmental Project Managers. And hopefully you had a chance to meet some of the other staff from the NRC here during our open house. Next slide. So I just wanted to do a couple things of, at a very high level, talk about who we are, right? NRC, Nuclear Regulatory Commission. We are made up of we are an independent federal agency. We have 5 commissioners. These are political appointees that lead our agency to make policy decisions. We have a professional staff, about 2,800 people, scientists, engineers, do the safety reviews, security reviews, reviews, all within the agency. We do have a number of offices around the country. Brett mentioned our Region 1 office in Philadelphia. There are 3 others, Texas, Chicago, and Atlanta. We also have resident inspectors, which you may hear a little bit more about in the presentation later on, that are located at each and every one of the operating power plants in the United States. And their purpose is to be on site, available 24/7, to provide inspection and oversight of use of the reactors. We have 50 years regulating all civilian use of nuclear energy, nuclear materials. This goes back to the 1970s, so we've been around a while, we have a lot of experience. In our mission, this is the key part, protect public health and safety. Test system, okay, thank you. We'll cut right at the very key part. Protect the common defense and security, and protect the environment. And the environmental piece is why we're here tonight. All right, next slide, please. All right, so what do? We determine whether it's safe to build and operate a proposed nuclear reactor at the site, which is what TerraPower here is planning to do in Kemmerer. We evaluate the environmental impacts of building and operating a nuclear reactor at the proposed site. The principal purpose of why we're here is to seek your input on our environmental review. Once it's built and operated, we inspect, provide oversight, as I mentioned earlier. And we also are the entity that provides the licenses, just like your driver's license, to the people that actually will operate the reactor. They have a special license, a very rigorous and robust process they go through to get trained. And they actually service it through several examinations, and then the NRC will actually issue each and every one of the individuals a license to operate that reactor. All right, next slide. All right, with this, I'm going to turn it over to Alicia Sutton, who's going to talk about the licensing process. Before I do that, I do want to mention and re-emphasize the part. The reason we're here is to hear from you. We are at the beginning of the process for the construction permit. We are here to listen to what you have to say, take back those comments and feedback, incorporate it into our environmental review. So it's really important for us to hear from you. If you have input or any comments, please let us know. Brett mentioned that there's an opportunity for you to step up to the mic. It's recorded, so we'll have it and we can take it back. But it's very important that we hear from you, and that's why we're here. That's why we traveled halfway across the country to come to Kemmerer or Wyoming to meet with you in person and hear what you have to say. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Melissa.
Thank you, Grace. So, hi everyone, I'm Alicia. I'm glad to be back. I've now met with you guys when I came in November. So, what is a construction permit? That you never asked. So let me explain to you in layman terms. So it's the NRC authorization of an application to proceed with construction of a nuclear facility. So what is happening on the site right now, we are not part of NRC's authorization. The construction permit allows the applicant to begin building the plant after the NRC determines that all requirements have been met with respect to safety of the preliminary design and suitability of the site. However, it's important to remember that after the facility proposed by TerraPower is built, should we issue the permit, they must submit an application for an operating license, which is needed for them to operate the facility. The operating license is reviewed concurrent with the construction and is issued after NRC determines that the final design meets all safety and environmental requirements. I'll note that the possession of a construction permit does not guarantee that the permit holder will be given an operating license. There are two aspects to the NRC's review that must be completed to inform the Commission decision on whether to issue the construction permit, the safety and environmental review. Throughout the construction permit application review process, there are two opportunities for hearing. The mandatory hearing will take place at the end of the review process. Staff presents their determination to either the Commission or the Atomic Safety and Licensing Board. The other opportunity is a contested hearing. Members of the public will have multiple opportunities to file intervention related to the application. The current intervention period will be closing on August 5th. Next slide, please. So let me go into a little bit about the reactor. The reactor uses metal fuel, is cooled by molten sodium instead of water. It uses additional molten sodium loop to store extra energy to use when needed. The reactor itself is designed to generate about 345 megawatt electric on an ongoing basis. An additional molten sodium storage can be boosted to output of 500 megawatt electric for peak demand needs. The applicant must submit a preliminary safety analysis report, which contains the information and criteria on the preliminary design of the reactor and a comprehensive set of data describing the characteristics of the proposed site and key topic areas such as external hazards to include facilities, the hydrology, seismology, reactor fuel, reactivity, control and reactor shutdown, primary coolant and decay heat removal, instrumentation and control, radiation protection for both workers and the public, accident analysis, operation programs to include emergency plan, security and operator training. NRC performs a review to ensure that the design meets all applicable NRC regulations. When the NRC completes its review, it issues a safety evaluation report summarizing its findings and evaluation of the effect and the proposed facility on the public health and safety. The NRC Advisory Committee on Reactor Safeguard then performs an independent review of the application in the NRC's staff safety evaluation report and submits it to the Commission in a report. Next slide, please. So this slide depicts an overview of the construction permit review process. The process was used by most of the operating fleet, so they submitted a construction permit as a two-step process. I want to pause it for a minute to have you take in the process and to highlight to you orange our points, right? So this is where we are right here in the scoping process. As Chris mentioned, that's why we're here today. I didn't want to pause to show you where you can get involved as a member of the public. So the scoping process is under the obligation of the National Environmental Policy Act, and as you've heard, we call it for short, NEPA. So the results of the staff's safety and environmental reviews are then presented at a mandatory hearing that NRC will conduct at the end of the review process. In this meeting tonight, however, we want to focus on the environmental portion of the review of the construction permit and wanted to ensure that you provide your scoping comments, because we had to solicit comments from you to assist us in the environmental impact statement. I will now turn the presentation over to Joe to provide more detail on the environmental review and how you can provide your comments. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Joe Harriman, Environmental Project Manager with the NRC. I'm just going to go over here some of the environmental review processes and environmental scoping that the NRC conducts. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is the proposed Kemmerer Unit 1 site. It's right off County Road 189, just east of 189, and right above the intersection of Skull Point Road. It's about 3 miles south of the city of Kemmerer. About 4 miles southeast of the Naughton Power Plant. Next slide. So TerraPower submitted an application to us that certified that the nuclear reactor meets all the regulatory requirements for environmental safety. This is an artist rendition of the proposed plant. As Chris and Alicia have both stated, this is a power reactor. So they're going to provide electric power to their customers. In order to provide water to the site, TerraPower will construct a water corridor that will tie into the Naughton Power Plant raw water settling basin. And they will also construct a transmission corridor that ties into the main substation at the Naughton Power Plant. Next slide, please. So, in the National Environmental Policy Act, NEPA, the way that the NRC incorporates that is through our Code of Federal Regulations, which is Chapter 10 of the Code of Federal Regulations, Part 51. As Chris and Alicia have both stated, this meeting is for the public. So it's very important for us to solicit your impact or your input on what the environmental impacts you believe are present in the community and how the project is going to affect you. And I will go through some methods where you can submit your comments. You can certainly speak tonight, or if you prefer, you can also submit a comment to the agency. Next slide, please. So I want to draw your attention to the six-sided box at the bottom here, which says final EIS prepared and issued. Both safety and environmental are driving towards that final EIS to be issued. The scoping process started when we issued our notice of intent in June of 2024. And so we have a 60-day scoping period that terminates August 12th, 2024. And so we would really like to gather the public's comments prior to August 12th. At that time, we will then issue a draft EIS, which the public will then have a comment period of about 45 days to review that. Once we resolve those comments, we will go ahead and issue a final EIS. And that is what will be used at our mandatory uncontested hearing that's required via the Atomic Energy Act. Cooperating agencies, federal agencies also have roles and responsibilities that overlap. So in order to prevent duplicative and redundant work, we designate one federal agency as the lead and other federal agencies that can assist us, and so that we have one environmental impact statement document, and we don't overburden either the public or the utility in redundant action. So in this particular case, the NRC is going to be the lead for the federal licensing action, and DOE could potentially be a cooperating agency with us. Next slide. As I stated, the scoping process is really for the public to provide us with input. That's what this entire meeting is about. Again, the scoping period is going to end on And after the scoping period ends, we will issue a scoping summary report to the public that shows all of the scoping comments that we received as an agency. Next slide, please. So in this particular slide, the environmental impact statement deals mainly with our communications with lots of different folks. We talk to other federal agencies. We have tribal interaction, state and local agencies, and also the public. Obviously, we also have the utilities construction application that we analyze in order to develop an EIS. Under here, under social services, under environmental justice and socioeconomics, we will actually send team members to the local area. We talk to a number of social services agencies such as the United Way. We go to women's shelters, we go to men's shelters. We talk to religious leaders that serve the poor to get a very good picture of what the impact is going to be on the actual community. Next slide, please. So this particular slide shows basically 15 resource areas that we analyze in your typical environmental impact statement. And most of them are pretty self-explanatory as far as those various resource areas that we take a look at. Next slide. Go back one, please. I think it's skipped. Here we go. So this is just a timeline of our review schedule. As Melissa had stated, the utility submitted an application. We accepted it and docketed it in May of 2024. We issued a notice of intent to scope it in June. And that's where we are right now. Again, the scoping period will end August 12th. We expect to publish a draft environmental impact statement in July of 2025. At that point, there'll be a 45-day comment period for the public to review what we came up with in the draft. And then after we resolve the public's comments to the draft, we will begin a final EIS expected to be published in May of 2026. Next slide. So Melissa touched upon contested hearings. This is not the mandatory hearing required in the Atomic Energy Act. This is if someone wants to intervene in this process and submit their concern, whether it be a safety concern or whether it be an environmental concern, to the agency. If an individual wants to do that, they can go to the Federal Register Notice, 89 FR 47997, and there's instructions there to do that. Or they can go to our public website and do an e-submittal. There is a digital certificate that's issued to the individual if the NRC decides that their concern has merit and they decide to do a contested hearing. Next slide. If you would like to read the actual application from TerraPower, it is available at your local public library. I believe they have 3 CDs there. You can certainly check it out and read it at your leisure. We also have the application up on our public webpage. And I'll show you a link that you can click on that will actually take you to the page. We will also make this presentation available on the public webpage. Next slide, please. Okay, so the public page for the TerraPower project is at the top. And these are our points of contact here. My colleague Patricia, myself, the second check mark there. If you have any comments or concerns, if you'd like to reach out, please feel free to send me an email or use the telephone number. And there's Melissa and her colleague Stephanie Devlin Gill are available. If you would like to contact us, please feel free to use that contact information. Next slide. We'd certainly like to hear from you tonight. If you'd like to speak, great. If you don't want to speak, that's great too. TerraPower Environmental at NRC.gov. That will come directly to the project if you'd like to submit a comment or concern. Please feel free to use it. I just advise you that if you do send something to the agency in an email, that you don't include any sort of personally identifiable information that you don't want it to become a permanent record forever. If you'd like to write us a letter, there's our address right there under Office Administration. And again, comments are due by August 12th. And that ends my presentation. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Oh, this does work. Thank you, Joe. So we're now going to turn to, if you look at the agenda for tonight's meeting, we reserved a small portion of time for members of the public to ask clarifying questions, or process-related questions regarding anything you saw tonight that relates to the scoping process in general, how the NRC review works, other things you saw up on the slides. You're like, I'm not quite sure I understand the difference between these terms. What's in EA? What's in EIS? What's a draft? How does this all fit together? If you have any of those questions now,
That's what happened to me.
all right. All right, so we're going to use this one. So if you have any such questions, now is an opportunity to ask them, and then we'll roll into the public comment portion. So at this point, for this section, I'm just going to ask you to raise your hand, I'll use the microphone, and I'll just kind of ferry it back and forth. So does anyone have any process or clarifying questions that they'd like to ask? Okay. And again, just state your name and any affiliation.
Thanks very much. My name is Davis Wolf. I'm with Core Maine. My question is just a technical question. I'm not sure I fully understood. I understand that the salin's going to be used, the saline solutions are going to be used for the cooling, but there were references to sources of water. Will there be an increase in demand of local water sources in order to operate the plant properly?
Thank you for that question. Give me a moment to shut on myself.
So, because we're not using water to cool the plant, there will be the same demand as used for the existing reactors, right? But they still need, they still have water usage that they be using, and we're analyzing that now because applicant just got submitted to us to see exactly what is the demand different from the existing reactor plants that use water for everything. Is that helpful?
So it's my understanding you don't know what you're investigating.
Just repeat it for the record. We don't, your clarifying question was, so you don't know what you're investigating at this point.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Any other questions at this time? All right, oh, here we go. And again, just state your name and any affiliation.
Hi, so what I'm wondering is if there are archaeological, I'm Laura Pearson. If there are archaeological finds out there, what are you doing about that? Because like on other BLM lands and things like that, if they find something that might be an archaeological find, whether it be Indian remnants, arrowheads, things like that, it can shut down everything that we want to do as far as grading an existing road or whatever else it might be. So what do you do for that?
Thank you.
So I believe if there are, I guess, culturally sensitive items, and that could be various things. They could be
areas where food was prepared, like roasting pits. They could be evidence of tool making, some of those culturally significant items. If they were found during the construction of this project, those particular areas, some of those sensitive cultural areas are actually known to us now. And we are evaluating and analyzing the impact on the construction of the facility, given the data that we know right now. But I can assure you that the NRC is aware of some areas on this site that are culturally sensitive.
So if we do find an area that is unknown to the NRC, it is customary for the applicant to go ahead and fence that area off, and for us to go ahead and reach out to the state historical preservation officer and analyze that particular artifact and to see how we can protect it, mitigate any harm to that particular historic artifact. So we will make sure it's fenced off and do our analysis to protect it, preserve it, and mitigate any impact to it. But Joe's correct, we are aware of current historical artifacts on site that are being protected now, but if something is a fine, that's the process.
All right, thank you for that question. And I think that the NRC staff also mentioned we will be consulting with tribes as part of this process, correct?
That's correct. We have actually reached out to 30 tribes in the area as part of this analysis. We are aware that 4 of those tribes do want to be part of meetings. And so again, that is in process.
Thank you very much for that question. Any other quick questions before we move into the public comment section? Going once, twice. Oh, we got one hand. All right.
Scott Miner. I learned today that once the plant is in operation, there will be a physical presence from the NRC during the operation phase. But the spent fuel will also be stored on site until such time as there is a permanent repository, which could be short time period, long time period, nobody knows at this point. But with that on-site presence of the NRC, can we assume that the fuel storage area will be inspected routinely and be secure with additional security so that we don't have to worry about some unintended consequences from spent fuel?
Thank you very much for this question. I'm going to go to Scott Ronell in our Office of Public Affairs.
As I said, I'm Scott Ronell. I'm one of the national spokespeople for the agency, and we often deal with questions on spent fuel. The short answer is yes. Once a plant is operating, storage of the fuel that's no longer used in the reactor is one of our inspection activities, whether it is in a pool of water or other near-term storage facility on site, or it's transferred to dry casks, which is a longer-term but still not permanent method of storage. We do have inspectors who regularly go out and look at those facilities to make sure they're meeting the agency's requirements for safe and secure storage of the fuel.
Thank you very much, Scott, and thank you for that question. We have a question over here. All right, and then I think we're going to roll into the public comments, and then we can keep asking questions as we enter into that process.
Kathy Boyne-Sand, Wyoming Rural Water. And this goes back to the spent fuel question. How long does the fuel last in operation before it has to be replaced?
Thank you very much. Okay. All right, I'm going to bring it up to the table.
I don't have an answer for that because right now I don't have the information in front of me. this is something that we could get back to her with an answer.
All right, so again, just stick around, we'll get your contact information and the NRC will follow up with you. All right, with that, we're gonna roll into the public comment portion. If you do have questions, I feel like we're past some extra time, might be wrong, but we'll see how it goes. So to begin that process, I'm now going to turn to any elected officials or representatives of elected officials who would like to either just stand and be recognized for being here or to offer and prepare remarks at this time, including representatives of any tribal nations who we have with us this evening. Are there any such officials or representatives of elected officials who would like to avail themselves of this opportunity to make a prepared statement? Just raise your hand. Okay. I do know that we have with us two individuals from the United States Senator Cynthia Loomis' office. We have Jackie Keith, who is the state director of the Senator's office, as well as Sarah Hale, the field representative for the Senator's office. Thank you very much for being in attendance with us this evening. All right, any other elected officials or representatives of elected officials? Going once, twice. All right, so we now have two members of the public who signed up to offer comments. You'll see this clock. I feel like 9 times out of 10 when I bring this clock, which is a countdown clock, well, that's what we use it for. I don't actually need to use it because there's no need for it. So this is just for show. I'll hold you up the box. TSA clearly thinks, or someone at TSA clearly thought this was an improvised device, given that they clearly thoroughly wrapped it to say instructed with like 2 yards of tape. Anyway, but we're not going to use this. We're just going to keep it conversational. We have an hour left. So if you do have a comment after we go through the first two, just raise your hand and bring in the microphone and we'll go through it that way. Okay? All right. So first person I have up is Marcia Corwin. Or Marshall Corwin? I'll bring you the microphone. And again, just state your name, you know, I just stated it, and then any affiliation before you begin.
Marshall Corwin, I live here in Kemmerer. I just wanted to point out that the world's most dangerous supervolcano is 4 hours north, and barring any accident happen, the consequences could be world-changing. And also, I'm not comfortable doing any deals with the devil.
Okay, thank you for your comment. Go to my list. We had up next. All right, and then we have next up Cheryl Gunter. Cheryl Gunter? Yes, okay. We thought that you might have it. We weren't sure how to interpret that, so we marked you down as yes. All right, resume. All right, bringing you the microphone.
The only thing that I'm very curious about is the growth of the area. And I want to know that this nuclear plant is going to be a positive growth factor. I'm also very involved in tourism. I want to just make sure that they felt safe when the trip was coming.
So just to clarify, when you say, and thank you for your comment, when you say growth, you're talking about like economic growth, development, that. Okay, great, thank you. All right, and now that exhausts the two people that I had, one who signed up and one I kind of feel like I forced into it. Anyone else would like to make comments tonight? Oh, bring the microphone back to you. There you go.
My name's Jamie Thornock. I was at the meeting earlier today. One thing I asked there, and still I'm curious about, you see the basement facilities that you have there. I'm curious is that going to be into our groundwater? Because there's a lot of families that are around that area that have water wells that's what they used to drink. The road, I don't know why that is so close to the highway, but that road is a major, it's a major way for people. There's people working at the power plant, Exxon, have to travel that road. And it seems like that is extremely close to the highway. And then the railroad, this spent fuel as it goes out, is that going to be running through the city of Kemmerer? On the railroad, that worries me. You talked about OSHA, that they'll be regulating. It seems like OSHA, when they regulate, it's when an accident or something big has happened, and then they're going to come in and point fingers. Do they actually regulate and watch as things are going? They've said this is a demonstration plant, where do we know if it's even going to work? I'm worried about that. The permitted water, that's been brought up. Does Utah Power might have enough permitted water to take care of this? If the water is used up, the city of Kemmerer uses that water as well. Who gets priority if you've got an incident going on out there? This probably doesn't have anything to do with you, but our wind and solar isn't reliable. I wish they'd leave the coal alone. So.
Thank you very much for your comments. We appreciate it, and we'll take that back. We'll add it to the transcript and consider it as part of figuring out the scope of our environmental review. So thank you again. For all of your reference, the meeting that was just referred to, we had an earlier meeting with government officials to better, introduce this project to them and what we'll be talking about here this evening. So it was a get-together, an informal session with us to get together with local elected officials and state officials regarding this project. So thank you. Anyone else? Again, it is now 6:43. If you have additional clarifying questions, granted, the staff here may not have the expertise to answer them, but we want to make sure that you walk away from this equipped to, if you want to make a comment to regulations.gov, mail in a comment, that you have that background that you need to do so. So if you have a clarifying question, please feel free to ask it. Or if you have another comment that you'd like to have transcribed this evening, please raise your hand. I'll be happy to open the microphone. Anyone else? Oh, come on, we're making this way too easy.
Thanks very much. I do have another question. It's a procedural question, and I'm not sure I'm addressing precisely the right audience. I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry, Dave Swoll, with Core Maine. And my question is, we're about to see the rapid, explosive, exponential growth here. And in order to support that growth, there are additional infrastructure that's going to be required. Who is responsible for determining what is required and when it will be installed and which standards will be met and when it will be completed in order to ensure that this community remains a community and isn't fragmented by the growth?
Can you give me an example of what the kind of thing you're thinking about to better help them with those goals?
Certainly. So it's my understanding, and I could be quite off on my numbers, but it's my understanding that maybe the population of Kemmerer right now is 4,000, something like that. And with all the construction, would it be more of a long-term project? All of a sudden we need more water services. All of a sudden we need more infrastructure in order to deliver the water and to collect the used water. And what sort of provisions are in place in order to ensure that best practices are maintained in the execution of that underground infrastructure, that construction, and all the services that are required in order to support that construction and the additional population within the community?
Thank you very much for that. I'll go back up to the staff here. Pat?
So we are just getting ready to study that information that we were provided in a projection for people involved in construction involved with that to see that that is handled in the consistent way they've always handled it. When we have our draft environmental impact statement complete, then you can review more closely in there what we think is projected, what we agree with, and how that we think that will impact the community. We look at that as well as all, there's numerous things that, housing and so on that will likely be needed. I can't give you numbers on that now, but we need to look into that. But I appreciate the feedback because even though that was more of a clarifying question, it really is telling us things that you think we ought to look at in our DIS.
Again, thank you very much for that. And for everyone else who's participated thus far. Oh, hand up. Again, just start by stating your name.
Kathy Wonsant, Wyoming Rural Water. And as you coordinate, I would really encourage you not to forget water and wastewater facilities, to bring the operators in. Oftentimes, decision makers are the ones that are included, and the decisions are made and water and wastewater operators are told to do it. Well, sometimes it's not doable. So I would encourage you to also include water and wastewater operators.
Thank you very much for that comment. I appreciate it. Anyone else? Let's see. Watch where I'm walking. Anyone else? Okay, so we have up on the slide multiple ways, again, as was discussed by Joe, that you can comment. During the scoping period, which is open until August 12th. Again, that is a comment period for the scoping process. We're looking for your comments on what we should consider as part of our environmental review, in terms of what impacts this project could have on the community, on natural resources, and whatnot. So with that, I'll turn it over to Chris for closing remarks.
No, thanks, Fred. No, thank you very much for your comments and the feedback. The questions you asked, the clarifying questions, is very important because it helps us ensure that we're giving you enough information for you to be participative in our decision-making process. We're a very deliberative and open agency, and you are part of our process. So thank you very much for coming this evening. Thank you very much for your comments. This is we're at the very front end of the process. You saw the timeline. This is scoping. It's probably the most important part of our environmental review process, as it ensures that we have everything we need before we actually really launch into the review. So if you do have more thoughts after this meeting, you've got avenues to provide us comments, send emails to the staff here. They're more than welcome to chat with you some more, answer any more questions you might have. On a more personal note, we're very passionate about what we do. I've been at the Nuclear Regulatory Commission for 34 years. I'm a civil servant. I do it because I love my job. You think about, well, this is Wyoming. We work in Rockville. I can tell you I have a nuclear research and test reactor 5 miles from where I live, so I know some degree of what you guys, the questions you might have about having a new reactor built in your community and what it means to you. So we look forward to hearing from you if you have any more comments. I think we're scheduled to be here until 7:30, so although we may be finishing with the formal portion of the meeting, if you want to grab us after the meeting with some more questions or want to chat with us a bit more, we'll be available for the next 45 minutes. So with that,